Welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. I'm David Kern. Today is December 5th, 2019, which means that it is my son Jeremiah's 7th birthday today. And I have 2 poems that I'm going to read in honor of him today. Before I do that, though, I want to remind you, as I did once already this week, about our competition for our younger listeners. Remember to draw a picture or paint a picture or in some way create an illustration of or inspired by the Ogden Nash poem, The Tale of Custard the Dragon. Remember, you can enter by posting your submission on social media with the hashtag TDP Ballad, as in the Daily Poem Ballad. So hashtag TDP Ballad. And the deadline for that is December 31st, so the last day of this year. That brings me to today's poems. Jeremiah, who, as I said, it's his birthday today, he is a violinist. He loves playing his violin, and we love listening to him. So I've got 2 poems that are about the violin, one serious, one humorous. And I'm going to begin with the one that's humorous, which is by Bruce Lansky, an American poet who does a lot of things bringing poetry to children. And this is a humorous poem that in no way describes the way we feel about listening to Jeremiah play the violin. It goes like this. My mom brought home a violin so I could learn to play. She told me if I practiced hard, I'd play it well someday. Without a single lesson, I tried to play a song. My fiddle squeaked, my fiddle squawked. The notes came out all wrong. My little brother fled the room. Mom covered up her ears. My puppy dog began to howl. My sister was in tears. My dad pulled out his wallet. He handed me a 10. He made me swear I'd never play that violin again. So that is from a 1996 collection called My Dog Ate My Homework, and that's Bruce Lansky. As I said, it has absolutely nothing to do with how we feel about Jeremiah playing the violin, which we quite enjoy, even as someday the fiddle squeaks and squawks. But that's part of the whole point, isn't it? Which brings me to another poem that is about the positive of playing the violin. It's called The Musician, and it is by the Welsh poet R.S. Thomas. He lived from 1913 to 2000. I've shared a poem of his recently, 1 or 2. Again, this is The Musician, and this is how it goes. A memory of Chrysler once. At some recital in this same city, the seats all taken, I found myself pushed onto the stage with a few others, so near that I could see the toil of his face muscles, a pulse like a moth fluttering under the fine skin and the indelible veins of his smooth brow. I could see, too, the twitching of the fingers caught temporarily in art's neurosis, as we sat there or warmly applauded this player who so beautifully suffered for each of us upon his instrument. So it must have been on Calvary, in the fiercer light of the thorn's halo. The men standing by, and that one figure, the hands bleeding, the mind bruised but calm, making such music as lives still, and no one daring to interrupt, because it was himself that he played, and closer than all of them, the God listened. This is a lovely poem. I love poems that give us a scene out of which everything is inspired. And here we get such a good example of that, because at first, he's giving us this thing that he saw, and then the reflection comes out of this very tactile, human, specific thing. And I think that adds an extra layer of meaning. Makes it more universal even. But I love that middle stanza. This is a 3-stanza poem, and the middle stanza is 5 lines. And it's the one that talks about how he could see the twitching of the fingers caught temporarily in art's neurosis. The player who so beautifully suffered for each of us upon his instrument. He suffered bringing something into the world. And you get the sense that there's the suffering of perhaps playing in that moment. Maybe the fingers are sore and calloused. Maybe his knuckles hurt. But also there's the suffering that's practicing. The suffering that is just putting in the work, doing the difficult labor of preparing for that moment. And all those things feed into the final stanza where Christ becomes the musician. The thorns on his head halo him like the light on a stage. And because of the labor, because of the suffering, it's music that lives still. So this is a poem that I think of, that I dedicate to Jeremiah, to all of the young people out there who are putting in the work, putting in the labor. You're making music, you're making art, you're making things that will live still. And in that we're imitating the original creator. So one more time, this is The Musician by R.S. Thomas. A memory of Chrysler once. At some recital in this same city, the seats all taken, I found myself pushed onto the stage with a few others, so near that I could see the toil of his face muscles, a pulse like a moth fluttering under the fine skin, and the indelible veins of his smooth brow. I could see, too, the twitching of the fingers, caught temporarily in art's neurosis, as we sat there or warmly applauded this player who so beautifully suffered for each of us upon his instrument. So it must have been on Calvary, in the fiercer light of the thorns' halo, the men standing by in that one figure, the hands bleeding, the mind bruised but calm, making such music as lives still. And no one daring to interrupt, because it was himself that he played, and closer than all of them the God listened. This has been the Daily Poem. Thanks so much for listening. Be back tomorrow with another poem, and happy birthday to Jeremiah.